You found us. I'm so glad you did, but I am sorry that you had to. Who are we? I'll tell you what we're not. We're not old, we're not boring, and we're not giving up. So come on into our Widow Circle, where trauma meets humor, and we remind you that you can not only survive, but thrive. This is Every Widow Thing. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Every Widow Thing. We are excited to share so much information with you over this next season. You may have seen on our Instagram page that we have some exciting news that we were celebrating. I'm going to take it over to Keira and let her share something that I think will inspire all of us.
I got engaged over the summer.
Yay!
Just to recap, I'm 9 years out from the car accident that took my husband, Frank's life. I met Brendan probably a little over 5 years in. I had been on and off some dating websites. I had a few setups. I had a couple relationships.
Lacey's laughing. Lacey was there for all of that.
Setups never really go that well, just to be honest. But, you know, one thing that I think when you're going into this process after like losing your spouse is I had a couple of relationships with some really nice men who, you know, it was just nice to be taken out to dinner and it was nice to take a trip, or sometimes they would come over and help with home projects.
Yes.
As you guys know.
Change light bulbs.
What were their names?
It's just nice to have a man around the house.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that sound sexist?
But, no, it's so true.
What I realized, though, is that I was not falling in love. I was not in love with any of those gentlemen. And I met Brendan in a period where I was just kind of off. I was just, I guess, taking a break. Anyway, a girlfriend was like, oh, there's this new one called Hinge, and let's get you on there. And she just kind of threw up some pictures and threw me on there. And
you on there.
One really funny thing about meeting Brendan, who's my fiance, I guess, it's just like a mouthful, is that he lives a little bit out of my typical kind. I literally had like a 15-mile parameter on my apps.
Yeah.
And he's about 30 miles away. She had just thrown me on there, and that parameter had kind of opened up to his area, which is, he lives a little north of the city. And so, yeah, so we met online. And I will say, like, the very first date, we definitely connected big time. We just had one of those dates, which like, wow, it was easy. It was laughing. There was just chemistry. And he had picked this really funny place. Is this too much detail?
No.
Anyway, he had picked this place I'd never heard of that was sort of between where I lived and where he lived. And I was joking about it with my girlfriends that morning at our workout. And they were like, where are you meeting this guy? And
Suburbia.
It was called the Brutorium. And they were all like, what the hell is that? It's
like a brewery.
Brewery. Yeah. And anyway, we were giggling about that. And then we were calling him, I used to nickname most of the men I dated something like where they were from, or in my phone, here's another good tip, widows, I would always put the contact in as a female name. So he was Brenda in my phone.
So was that for your kids? Like,
yeah, because my kids were young enough that they would be picking up the phone and be like, who's Maria? And it was really Mark or whatever.
So is he still Brenda in your phone?
He is not still Brenda, but all the other people I dated are still in their
I would
female
forget. I would have
iteration.
a hard time keeping. I wouldn't be able to remember.
There's so many.
But I
There's
mean,
so many.
we've all had young kids who are just the phone. It's in the kitchen or they're picking it up to look at the phone, and you don't want. Anyway, that was one of my strategies that you're welcome to borrow. So anyway, closed down the place. You know, it's a Wednesday night. They actually started playing Closing Time on the patio.
That's hilarious.
So funny. That's pretty funny.
That's your song. That needs to be
I texted him the next day. I was like, I think Closing Time.
When you're coming down the aisle at the very end.
Closing time.
That was the November before the pandemic. So we were kind of just getting serious, and then the pandemic hit.
I'm going to drink my champagne.
Well, can we
cheers?
Yeah,
Cheers.
we can drink.
Cheers. Sorry. This is too long-winded.
Cheers.
No, it isn't.
No, I want to hear it all. I was just getting to know you.
They don't, but they
Our
don't.
audience doesn't know.
Yeah, it's fun. It's
Yeah.
fun
We
to
wanna hear
listen.
all the
It was
good
only after
stuff.
you came and had coffee with me in my backyard that I really I was like, this is
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So
And I
closing
will say
time, that's
Lacey
awesome.
was with me for a lot of some of the other men I dated. She had met.
Two
and
that I remember.
she was like, they're pretty
came
nice,
to my house.
but they're not, that's not going
But
anywhere.
Brendan's the one he's awesome.
Yeah. So, okay. So the pandemic hit and it was make or break, right? He ended up moving in. Him and his daughter kind of moved in with me initially because his daughter was back and forth. His ex-wife was still working in a healthcare capacity. And we were just worried about that. So I'm just sort of like a home, bring everyone here. I'll be cooking and shopping and
When was
going
the trip?
and-
Wasn't there a trip to Spain or something? somewhere in
Yes,
there?
we went to
wow.
Barcelona the New Year's before. So 2020, he came to Barcelona with me and my kids and another
I
family.
remember it being kind of early on. I thought, wow, that is brave.
Yeah.
But you knew already. You kind of knew.
Well, a
He
lot
was
of people
gonna-
thought that was a dicey move. I guess I was like, come on, let's get
When did you tell them that you'd met someone? And did you say you think it's going to
Clearly before
be
New Year's.
serious?
Yeah, so I would like right around Christmas.
So you met in November.
early.
And Christmas, you're
Yeah.
telling your kids.
When you lay it out like that, it sounds,
No, but that happens all the time.
It sounds a
People,
little
when
bit
you know,
hasty.
you know.
But you-
well, Oliver and I
mean-
met married in 8 months, but
Yeah.
engaged in 3. I think you know when you know.
I was just
Yeah.
curious
I
how you
mean,
handled the kids.
I don't
Well, I
think there
want to
is
say
a-
also at this point, my kids were
I knew you were
older.
dating.
So they were like 10, 15, and 17. You know, they were older. They weren't as little. I felt like they would be on board with meeting somebody. Because
Right.
at this point, I had pretty much kept most of my dating from them.
It had been like, 6 years at least.
It's been over 5 years
Yeah.
since.
Yeah, but
my dad
still,
died.
I mean, my kids were older, and even now, I keep that stuff pretty close. And
I think you go with your gut. Like,
Sure.
you know your kids. You know yourself. You
But
know.
did you sit down with, like, how did that, I'm just curious, how did that work? Like, do you have a sit down with everyone?
Is there
You
a
go,
reason
so I've
you're
met
so
someone?"
interested in this
No, well, I'm just
process?
interested
Whitney?
in, I'm just, no. I'm
How
just
to introduce the
interested-
boyfriend to the children?
I was just curious
Yeah.
for the listeners,
So
you know?
we kept the relationship separate, but it was getting, I would say it moved quickly and quickly became pretty intense. And then I had already planned this trip to Barcelona for me and the kids for after Christmas. After the accident, I kind of started doing more of, the sitting around the tree and the Christmas was difficult for me. So I started doing more planning, like of trips around the holidays. And it was a time that we were all together. The kids were off school. So I had already planned this trip with another family to go to Spain. I don't know, like I probably had like one too many cocktails one night and was like, hey, like, do you want to come? I knew he didn't have his daughter that at that time. And I was like, hey, do you want to come on this trip with me and my kids to Barcelona? I already had the apartment.
So he just showed up on the flight and you're
No.
like, hey, he's coming
No.
along.
So then when he decided, yes.
Whitney likes the detail.
Yeah. Then when he
The
said, yes,
devil's in
I would
the
like
detail.
to join, I said, oh gosh, we better introduce you to
Right.
my family.
I had a friend that that brought her boyfriend along on a trip to Iceland, and her kids were there, and she didn't mention anything. And then she pretended like they had befriended each other on the flight.
Oh, that's
my gosh,
bad.
that
that
his
is
room had
hysterical.
gotten like mixed up,
That's
and he didn't have
elaborate.
anywhere to stay.
Oh,
So then she was
no
like,
way.
"Oh, well, we have an extra room. You can stay
That's
with
funny.
us."
Did they end up together?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I had him over for dinner and everybody sat everybody down and I said, this is someone I'm dating. And then I think they met him a couple more times. And then I think I said, oh, and by the way, I think he's going
He's
to come.
going to Spain.
And what worked about that is we were already going with another family that we're really close with.
So there were other people. It wasn't just like
it wasn't just
you, your
us.
family, and Brendan.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And Brendan's such an easygoing guy. I would imagine he knows how to kind of adapt to whatever's going on in the room. He seems like that type of person
Yeah.
to me. The
Mhm.
times I've been around
He
him,
does.
He's not overbearing. He's not Joe salesman.
But you can be the greatest person in the world, and the kids will have resentment or, a loyalty that puts up a wall too,
I
It
guess I'm
definitely
taking it from like my son. He wants me to have that. So I assume like your kids.
Yeah.
Maybe it's different than divorce. I think divorce, maybe it's more
I
contentious
think
that
if they're
way.
still alive, then
But
it
when they're
definitely
dead
would
and they've
make
been
a
dead as
difference.
long as your husband had been dead, I think that they want you to be happy. They want
Yeah.
their mother. They don't want the pressure of having to make sure their mom's happy.
Yeah.
So when they leave the nest, I'm sure for Thomas and your daughter, I think they probably were thinking, great, she's got somebody. I don't have to worry about her.
Yeah.
So
All
there's
right,
that.
let's get to
I
the
don't
juicy
know.
details. So,
So
the
let's
juicy
fast
details.
forward.
So fast forward, we've been together almost 4 years, and we had talked about getting married someday, but we just hadn't really sat down and hammered it out. So fast forward to this summer, he wanted to plan a trip for just the two of us, which is really sweet.
And you were not going to go on it.
Yeah,
Remember
it
there
was
was.
like 2
I
weeks
remember at the
before.
pizza place, you were like, I don't think I'm going to go.
I
Maybe I
was
shouldn't go.
overwhelmed. I had a lot going on with the
Another
kids.
girl could have gotten your ring.
And I know. And I was
mean-
like, but he insisted. And obviously, I was excited to go. But I just, in that moment, I was feeling overwhelmed.
Your plate was full, and you thought, how can I leave town?
Exactly.
That's
yeah.
understandable.
He planned the trip to Maui, which we'll get to in a minute, because it was right before the fire. We'd looked at rings on one trip in New York, but I was like, well, I don't really know. What do you want second time around? You don't really think about it.
That is a hard thing.
I don't know. That was my problem. I was like, gosh, I don't even know what that would look like. But then on his insistence, he was just like, just send me some ideas. So I sent him one ring that I thought I had seen online that I thought was really pretty a couple months ago. And that was it. So anyway, we get to Maui and we're like 2-3 days in. We're sitting around the pool. I have a couple Mai Tais in me. And I just kind of brought up, where are we with things? And, what's our plan? And how come you never want to talk about it? And remember that time when you said you would never get married again? And, I was just doing all the things when you kind of pick a fight, I guess, is sort of what I was doing. Kind of bad.
My ties will do that.
I think I was just getting a little frustrated in the relationship. Like, well, what's going to happen next? And, I was giving him a hard time about how he never, whenever it came up, I felt like it was me bringing it up, like what would the future look like? And I don't want to say never because he would engage in those conversations, but I felt like it was always
The Mai Tais were telling you.
the Mai Tai
that-
said it's his fault. So we have this fight, which I think carries on back to the suite. And then we were getting ready for dinner or something. And he just at one point, he just kind of took me by the shoulders and was like, can we just
Oh,
move forward? Can we just have
you're
fun?
like creating a
Right.
fight.
Can we just have a good time?
Right.
And I still didn't think. So the next day or might have even been that night, we were supposed to drive up to the top of Haleakala, which is the volcano there. And we were going up for sunset. And we drive about an hour from the resort. And then we get to the entrance of the national park, which is at the base of the volcano. And the park ranger is like, well, it's full up there. There's no parking. You won't be able to park. And we're like, oh no. So we start driving and it's just, I don't know if who's been to the top. You've been
it's
to the
a
top.
nightmare, scary drive.
It is. It's a twisty drive. So I'm sitting very quietly so that he can focus on the road. And I'm just sort of looking out and it's
Beautiful, though.
It's an incredible experience. You start in this kind of foggy, low bit. And then you start to get above the clouds and you feel like you're in an airplane. And I'm just kind of looking out the window and I'm taking some pictures and I'm letting him focus. But I think I was telling you guys that I had this feeling looking out over the clouds. And then you know how sometimes there's light that kind of comes through. And I sort of have this thing whenever the light comes through, maybe this sounds cheesy or very
It doesn't.
predictable.
Dude, I'm
It
eating it up.
Feels like Frank. It feels like heaven. It feels like maybe Frank is peeking through the clouds. And
Yes.
a stream of
love
light
that.
is coming. So on the way up, I kind of had that like feeling that he was there, I
He was
guess.
with you.
I'm going to get upset. I know.
Not
So we
upset.
get to the top, and Brendan's in logistics mode.
Right.
Now
He's
I
like
know.
white
He's like-
knuckling.
he's like,
We have to get there.
Yeah.
There's a first parking lot, and then there's the one at the top. And we get to the first parking lot, and he's like, "There's a spot." And it's like into the spot, and we throw on like our jackets and our hats, and because we have to do like a 10 or 15-minute hike to the top, we get up there, and we're high-fiving because we got the parking spot.
Right.
And all these people are sitting on the ledge. And so I kind of walk over and I see this little rock and I kind of sit down. And he just keeps walking. I'm like, babe, this is a good spot. And he just keeps going. And I'm like, okay. So I'm following him and he keeps going and going.
He had a
and going.
plan.
And he gets all the way to where there's just no people. So we're just at the end of the crowd. And he sits down and I'm like, are you good? Like, is this going to work for you?
Is this the spot?
And I'm kind of annoyed because I want to get in position and get ready for the sunset. I'm sitting with my phone out and he's sitting and he starts this kind of speech, I guess. He's like, and ever since I've met you and that's really, and all of a sudden I just like look at him and I'm like, what are you talking about right now? Like it's about to go down. And
Did he get down on one knee?
So I look at him and then I can see like he's getting emotional and I'm like, oh my God. And he gets down on one knee and I'm kind of in shock. And then he pulls out the ring and it's the ring that I had sent that I was like, I really like this ring.
Aw.
He didn't ask like, will you marry me? He said, would you make me the happiest man in the world and be my wife?
Oh.
He busts out the ring and I put the ring on and I'm like sort of shaky and it's a little cold and the ring is a little oversized. And so in my mind, I'm panicking that the ring is going to go like tumbling down the volcano. And I'm trying to keep the ring on and kiss him and hold the, so sweet. It was just
And you're thinking about it tumbling down the.
I
cannot let go of
the
this ring.
brain.
Well, I think all of us kind of maybe have that kind of tragedy moment. I always have that about everything.
Yeah.
Like everything, I always think, oh, that could happen.
Anyway, it was so sweet. And we just kind of kissed and hugged and
Aw.
watched the sunset.
Aw.
As a widow, it's
There
like,
you go.
you don't know if this is ever going to happen to you again. You don't know if you're ever going to find
That's why I said you're giving a lot of people
that kind
a
of
lot of
love
hope
again.
that there
and,
is love a second time around. We all know it's different, but that's okay.
and everybody was super excited.
So exciting.
I know.
Yeah, there wasn't
Exciting.
anybody that was like, oh, terrible idea. But we got back and sadly, Maui had this horrible fire happen literally a week after we were there. And so then we were like, well, it's not really appropriate to post. Like, look, we just got engaged in Maui. I have donated. Please donate. There's lots of good causes. I ended up just really quickly doing baby to baby in the very beginning because they were looking for supplies for kids. But yeah, I'm excited for this new chapter. It is a very hopeful place to be in my life right now. Initially, I really wanted to fill that hole for the kids. Like my kids were little and I was like, I got to find a father figure for these kids. And so initially it was almost like a mission to find someone for them. And then as I got further along in the dating process, I realized, there's just not a quick fix for a great love. I mean, you just have to be patient and wait. And sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. And I feel so fortunate that now I've had two. But I definitely got to a point as my kids got older and as I had sort of muscled through the single mom, journey that I felt like we're going to be okay. They're going to be okay. I'm going to be okay.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't have to look like the family that that family unit that you've lost that you want to recreate so badly. I really had gotten to that point when I met him. And that was a really good place for me to be.
Well, I
because-
think that's a great lesson for everyone. It's something that I really believe when you let go and you are just trying to live in the present moment and create the best life for yourself, then more is brought in and it's icing on the cake. You're already creating a happy place, so you're fine with whatever happens next.
And you don't
it
want to
was really
settle.
great.
And none of us are going to settle. That's not going to happen because we had great loves and that set the bar really high. And we're not looking to replicate what we had, but it sets the bar pretty high. You want a guy that you feel like can be for the long haul and someone that's, I know for me, I would rather wait.
Yeah.
It's worth the wait.
It
To
sure
me,
is.
I have plenty of friends to play with, and I know you guys do too. It's better that, and then just also fill up your own life. Fill up your own life. Make it good. Like there are hard things that are going to continue to happen. Like there are hard things going on in my life, and I'm sure you too. You know, my mother's not well, and I'm going to be an empty nester, but I decided I'm going to embrace, even on those hard days, I'm healthy. I have the ability to travel, and I'm going to focus on that. And then I think that's when amazing things happen. We can't promise that people are going to meet another person.
No, you
'Cause
have
when
to get
people
to a
say
point
that-
where you don't need,
That's
you're not worrying about that. I'm going
Right.
to live my life and have a great life.
And I do have some people in my life that have no interest in finding, quote, that person. Like, we like our life the way it is.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think it's important to embrace that as you go through your life, just to, you know, and then you'll have love. It may not be that kind of love. It just may be love with people and friends. And so I kind of feel like that's the goal is
I
to
think that, it was helpful for me to take that pressure off early on. I took that pressure off myself. I was trying to fill that need for my kids.
Yeah.
And that's not a good way to approach a new relationship, like
Too much pressure.
take the pressure off yourself to find that person. Just dig into what your family looks like in the moment. And that's it was me and my kids. And, we formed a really nice bond through that. And then Brendan coming along is just kind of the icing on the cake.
Totally. My dad always said this because he was really raised mostly by his mother. He said, if you have one advocate in your life, you've got something major. And all of us have been there for our children, 150%. They've got us. So if we don't find that, quote, extra person, like mine's too old now. I mean, if he has a stepdad now, it's kind of silly. He's 18. He doesn't care. And he didn't care back then. It takes the pressure off when you're dating to find someone for you.
Yeah.
Not trying to find someone for, my 6-year-old.
And think about those years beyond. Now that I've launched 2 and I'm down to 1 kid, I've got all this time without the kids. And
That's right.
I'm looking for someone that I can have a good time with. And he and I, we both like to travel. We both like the same kind of music. We both,
And
are
you're in
fairly
the same
social.
boat as far as the age of your kids. You're gonna be.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say free, but you'll be empty nesters at the same time.
It's something to think about. Like, this is my rule. I'm not dating nobody that has kids at home for me. Because mine's gone. I'm finally, after 12 years
So
of
you won't
raising,
date anyone with kids still at home? Is that
unless
your-
they are like at the tail end of like senior year or something like.
Never
or
say
something.
never. 'Cause
Well,
you
maybe
said
not, because
15
that is
miles.
really
No
funny.
toddlers. No toddlers.
You never
I just-
know.
Keep thinking
Well,
12
I would
years
not do that
Yeah.
again.
of doing that by
Congratulations
yourself.
to
the
you
last
and Brenda.
Yeah,
thing.
congratulations.
Congrats.
Yay.
You guys are so cute. Thank you.
We want everyone to feel inspired by Keira's story. Your life is not over. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.